Welcome back to Candid Connections. Today we're going to be having a heart-to-heart about the brain. Over the past 15 years, Google Trends shows a massive increase in interest in narcissism. While one of the spikes indicates that a certain controversial American president is a contributing factor to this, the trend started long before Donald Trump and has continued to rise even after his departure from office. And the topic seems just as prevalent in the clinical psychology community. At the time of recording this video, Psychology Today had 17 articles that mentioned narcissism published in the last 2 weeks. For comparison, OCD is twice as common and is only mentioned in 4 articles over the same time period. So why is everyone, and especially Finland, so concerned with a disorder that only shows up in about 0.5% of the population? To start with, it's important to make a distinction between narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder. Narcissism is a trait that runs on a spectrum, and all of humanity falls somewhere on the narcissism spectrum. Like most attributes, it follows a normal distribution, with most people falling somewhere in the middle and just a few people on either extreme. Pathological narcissism, otherwise known as narcissistic personality disorder or NPD, is defined by the DSM as when someone exhibits impairments in personality functioning and the presence of pathological personality traits. It's a lot of P's. Or in normal person speak, when someone is so narcissistic that their absolute lack of empathy interferes with normal daily life. So when we use the term narcissist, it should really be referring to these people. There are people who are somewhat narcissistic, and then there are actual narcissists. But pop psychology is notorious for not caring about little things like, actual science. So let's clear this up once and for all. Being selfish doesn't mean you're a narcissist. Just like wanting to have a clean house doesn't mean you're OCD. Being excitable doesn't mean you have ADHD. And the MBTI doesn't mean anything. These are all conditions, terms, and tests that pop psychology has convinced us mean very different things than they actually do. And the distinction between negative traits like arrogance and personality disorders like narcissism is a big deal. Because when we let pop psychology run rampant, we start misdiagnosing everyone. Another problem rears its ugly head when we use real diagnoses like this to write people off as bad or mentally ill when they may actually just be immature or uneducated. When you use a strong label in a situation where it doesn't actually apply, you take power away from the meaning of the word. In a world where narcissistic abuse is an actual problem, we take power away from victims of actual narcissism when we use the term to describe people who are just kind of rude, insensitive, or generally self-centered. You know what's a great example of this? Nazis. Not Nazis, but the term itself, Nazi. It's been used to describe everything from sticklers for grammar to anyone who disagrees with you politically. So when you hear the word Nazi, you have to ask, are we talking about someone who's really picky about the way your shoes are tied, or someone who's trying to establish racial superiority through systematic genocide? Can you imagine the reaction of an actual Holocaust survivor hearing a middle schooler describe their teacher as a Nazi? So when you call someone who's just a little bit insensitive a narcissist, you discount the very real and serious problems of NPD. The last and maybe biggest issue is that NPD is very hard to fix. Treatment can be beneficial and the condition can be managed, but most of the time it will affect the person for their entire life. So when we label people who aren't pathological narcissists as narcissists, what we end up saying to them is, this is just the way you are. You can't change it, don't bother trying to be better. In reality, a lot of people who show narcissistic traits, like, the other 99.5% of humanity, are people who can change, learn empathy, and become better people. And often do. If you know someone who exhibits some narcissistic tendencies like arrogance, lack of empathy, or just general self-centeredness, don't tell them that they're fundamentally a narcissist. Encourage them to learn, grow, and change. Help them become better. Perhaps introduce them to a certain YouTube channel that teaches you to be a more kind and empathetic person. Or, therapy. Therapy's good too. If you have questions about narcissism or ways to help someone else or yourself deal with narcissistic tendencies, leave those questions in the comments. If we can all just be open and honest in talking about these kinds of things, we can probably make the world a little bit of a better place. Thank you so much for watching. Take a second to like this video and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I appreciate it so much, and we will catch you in the next video.